On this edition of Larry the Golf Guy, we have the great good fortune to have on really one of the legends of the game, Bob Ford. Bob Ford is truly one of golf's greatest ambassadors. He was, of course, famously the head pro at Oakmont for 37 years, at Seminole for 21 years. 17 of those years he was serving in both positions, with being at Seminole in the winter and Oakmont for the balance of the year. Bob is just viewed as the quintessential head pro. I think some 50 plus of his assistants have gone on to notable head pro positions at other clubs. And he's also has had a tremendous playing career while he's served as head pro at Oakmont and Seminole. He played in, I think, 10 PGAs and 3 U.S. Opens, won multiple Pennsylvania Open and Pennsylvania PGA championships, and has won just about every award you can win, including PGA of America Club Professional of the Year, which is the highest annual honor bestowed upon a PGA professional. And something I think is really neat is he's the only club pro to have won the USGA Bob Jones Award, and that award is the highest honor for sportsmanship in the game of golf. So really a decorated person in the game. And we talked with Bob about his career, how he got started in the game, his time as an assistant at Oakmont, where he served under the 1947 U.S. Open champion Lew Worsham, who a few years after Bob got there, Lew retired, and Bob ends up becoming the head pro at Oakmont at the young age of 25, which is really something. And we talk about his time at Oakmont, how he made the cut as the host pro in the 1983 U.S. Open, which is the last host pro to make the cut in the U.S. Open. Talk about the tree removal project at Oakmont, which became really the model for other clubs across the country, and also his time at Seminole and how he and his wife Nancy kind of juggled having those two jobs with 3 children. And then we get Bob's views on some of the issues facing the game today, the life of the club pro today, the role of technology in the game and how that should be regulated, and just the overall state of the game today. So all of that, much more, with really one of the game's truly greatest ambassadors, Bob Ford, up next on this edition of Larry the Golf Guy. Well, welcome to another edition of Larry the Golf Guy, and I am so pleased today to welcome to the program, and I think this is a fair word to say, the legendary Bob Ford. Of course, the longtime head pro at both Oakmont and Seminole. So many different awards, including the USGA's Bob Jones Award, which is as high as awards get for sportsmanship in American golf. So many other things we're going to talk about. Bob, thank you so much for making time to chat with us today.
Larry, I'm delighted. As I told you earlier, I'm retired, so I got lots of time.
You and me both are retired, so we have time to chat. So, as I often like to do for our guests, is to sort of go back a little bit to the beginning and give people a little bit of context. So, I understand you grew up in Philadelphia. I know you moved to Pittsburgh, I think, towards the end of your high school years. And that as I understand, your parents joined Aronimink. We actually had Jeff Kitty on a while ago from Aronimink. I've had a bunch of people from Philly on, and that your parents joined when you were a teenager. Maybe just talk to us about kind of how and when you were first introduced to this great game.
Well, my mom and my brother were pretty big golfers. My brother was 5 years, yeah, I think maybe 7 years my elder. And so I obviously really looked up to him. And he caddied at Overbrook and played on the high school team. He played football, but he played golf in the spring. And he and my mom would go out and play 9 holes at Meadowbrook, somewhere in a little bit north of us in Philadelphia. And I'd pull my mom's cart around. I must have been 8 or 9 or 10 years old, but I got a little curious and I started to smack it, and I was pretty good at smacking it. I played baseball as a kid, and it came pretty easy to me. So pretty soon I got to join them. And that led to caddying because my brother caddied, and I decided to caddy at Aronimink. I caddied a couple other little pretty weak places prior to that, but mostly at Aronimink. And my dad joined there when I was maybe 14 or 15 for business reasons. He wasn't really much of a golfer and didn't play much, but he had a few outings out there and really did it for my mom and myself. My brother was gone by then, to college.
Hmm.
And I learned so much caddying, um, about people. And particularly, I just felt like so comfortable in that arena. I was like, somehow this is going to be my life around these people, either as a member, or I never really thought that I would be a golf professional. But as a player, I was going to either be a member or a player. I figured when I got to Oakmont, Larry, that if I didn't make it playing, that somebody surely would hire me for my golf skills and put me to work selling whatever, real estate, wealth
Right,
management,
right.
steel, anything like that. So, being at Oakmont, I was really went there to try to play. And Lew knew that, and he supported me and encouraged me to play. Gosh, my second summer, I used to have two tour schools. I know it's kind of crazy, but they had one in June and they had one in October. In that particular year, which would have been 76, I guess. So he let me go to the tour school in June, and I came home. All my buddies at the tour school were going to Canada to play.
Uh-huh.
And I said, any chance I could slip up there to Canada and play a few events? I can't even believe I asked the question. Yeah, yeah, going up there, say hi to a couple, he knew everybody in the world. So, yeah, I played three straight events in June. I was gone the month of June. It was
Wow.
phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah,
but
so just
yeah.
just to sort of give people, so you before we get to sort of Lou and Oakmont, where we're definitely going to spend a lot of time chatting, you just to sort of fill the timeline out, you ended up going to the University of Tampa for college, and you played in college, right? I mean, I don't know, was there a particular reason you picked Tampa, or as you were thinking about college and stuff in terms of for golf and everything? I mean, I'm just curious, kind of how that came about.
Well, it's a good question. I like to say that they picked me. I say that because I tried to get into Jacksonville, where my best friend went, and we were inseparable. He stayed at my house his senior year, and his family moved to Pittsburgh, and his father joined Oakmont. Isn't that
Ah,
weird? And then uh, so Jacksonville only accepted me if I'd go in the summer. Well, I didn't want to go my last summer to college,
sure,
my
sure.
last summer high school. So Tampa was the only school that took me. And so that's why I went there. I wanted to go south in Florida so I could play golf. I
Sure.
really felt like, number one, I wasn't good enough to go to Florida or Florida State or any, like, those big Division I schools. So I felt like if I went to a small school where I could play 4 years and play on the team and not sit on the bench,
Yeah,
that I'd get better more quickly. And
right.
and really and it really kind of worked out.
And you got pretty good as a senior, and just as you were just alluding to, and improved during your time in college. I saw, I think if I have this right, it was 75, maybe the time you were a senior. You played in the Tampa Amateur, shot a pair of 65s, which is pretty good shooting, and got beat in a playoff by Gary Koch, who but that sounds like that was a neat accomplishment, and maybe just to sort of talk about how what you were thinking at that point in time about whether, gee, did you think with that kind of performance maybe I could make it on the tour, and kind of how you ended up, as I understand it, talking to Lou about leading to your assistant position at Oakmont, because I think Lou was probably, if I remember right, I think it was he did the winters in Fort Lauderdale and stuff, so maybe you went over to see him, but maybe you can talk about that. Sounds like an interesting kind of series of events there that led you to the assistant position at Oakmont.
It is freakish how much you know about me, Larry. You're bringing back a lot of memories. But Gary and I went through school the same years. He was at Florida, and he was from Tampa, and so in '75 we were seniors that year, and we played together the last round, and he shot 64, 66. So we got in the playoff. He beat me. So like all young kids, you play one good tournament and you think you can play the PGA Tour, and that was me. So really, I mean, that was the best thing I ever did up until then. And so Lew worked at Coral Ridge down in Fort Lauderdale for 25 years. Robert Trent Jones' family owned that facility.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
He worked for Trent Jones, who Oakmont ended up hiring to come in and put all the trees in.
Oh, we'll get to the trees.
Yeah, yeah. So Lew didn't. Lew was just an incredible guy. But I volunteered in '73 because I was in Pittsburgh for the summer.
Right, for the U.S. Open, the Johnny Mello U.S. Open, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd gotten to know him a little bit, and he teased me, so I thought he liked me. And in '74, the state amateur was there, where I went and shot 87, 85, I think, at Oakmont. And but it gave me another chance to see him and say hi to him. And I wasn't purposely doing it, and I had no idea what I was doing. I just, So '75 comes around, and I drive down to see him. I said, "Can I come see you?" And so I didn't have a playing resume, but I guess I had the article with Gary Koch.
Right.
And he had played in the U.S. Open qualifier in '73 with Gary Koch. Now, he only played 9 holes and quit, but his game was gone by then, like mine is now. But anyhow, I said, what do you think I should do with my future? I wanted him to say, you need to go play the tour. You're going to be good enough,
right,
and
right.
This is how you should go about it. That's what I was looking for.
Right.
Instead, he said, "Why don't you come up this summer and work for me? I'll find out whether you're any good or not." And then I'm like, "Well, what would I do?" In the summertime back then, there was nowhere to play. Canada was the only place to play, but there weren't any mini tours or anything. So I thought, well, my folks are in Pittsburgh. Yeah, I'll go see what it's like to be an assistant. And I thought driving home was, if I don't make it playing, somebody's going to hire me. So that was kind of my game plan, which was pretty weak, but it was my game plan. And he was incredibly great to me, as I stated earlier about letting me play, which is probably why I was so liberal as letting my guys play and encouraging my guys to play that worked for me.
Yeah.
I never really cared how well they played, just that they played and they had a passion to play. That was really my number one requirement. Right. I didn't want kids that wanted to, run tournaments or run merchandise or, have specialties. I wanted guys that wanted to play golf.
Yeah.
So, I continually failed at tour school. He let me go to 4 tour schools. And I guess by the 4th one, which was 6 rounds back then, and after 4 rounds, there were 40 spots. And after 4 rounds, I was in 7th place. Keith Fergus won this particular event. It was down in Brownsville, Texas.
Yeah.
And I laid there the night after the 4th round, said, that was easy. What the heck? How am I going to dress for the Bob Hope and the thing, the Crosby and things like? I mean, my mind was, I was already on tour, because that was what I was supposed to do.
Right.
And Mark Lai is a good buddy of mine. We were in Australia together that fall, and we got paired together the 5th round with Don Pooley. And on the first hole, walking down, I said something really stupid to Mark, and he said, "Whoa, buddy, you got a long way to go." And I'm like, oops. And it kind of made me nervous. And I shot 77, 75 on the last 2 rounds, missed it by 3, and went back to work. It's
boy.
kind of good. It's good. Defeats are good. You learn a lot in defeats.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of times more than you learn in victories. So you kind of, after the 4th time, and I should mention, by the way, just for some of our listeners, I mean, Lew Worsham like a lot of clubs back then, I mean, this guy was a U.S. Open winner. I mean, he was quite a player. He beat Sam Snead. I think it was at St. Louis Country Club in '47 when Snead missed that small putt. For Sam, all those runner-ups in the U.S. Open. But Lew was, a well-known player. But he let you sort of, as you say, give these shots, play a lot, give the Q school a shot. After that experience, and after the fourth time, did you kind of feel like, okay, maybe my role here is going to be more Oakmont and less making it on the tour? Did that kind of do it for you, or kind of how were you thinking back then?
No, I was going to go the fifth time.
You're going to go the fifth time, okay?
I'm stupid, but I'm not dumb. But um, the PGA was going to be at Oakmont in '78, the John Mahaffey
Right,
win.
that was Mahaffey's win in the playoff. That's right. That's right. I
And,
remember.
and all of a sudden there was talk about Lou retiring,
Wow.
and, and
Wow.
I had a couple advocates, in the membership that said, "Man, you need to stick around. You need to get this job." And they weren't saying you're not good enough to play the tour, but it was a big opportunity back then, and money wasn't crazy good like it is now out there on the tour, and I like being home, and I'm not crazy about the travel program. So I'm
Yeah.
like, maybe I should give this a shot. Said, I don't think I have a shot, but I'm going to take a swing. And, they interviewed six of us, and, I was just in the right place at the right time. I was a nice kid. I played good, and they gave me a crack. And,
Which
I
of
was 25.
20, yeah, you were 25 years old, right? Is that you were
Yeah,
such a young age?
crazy, crazy.
Um, Unbelievable. And so, at one of the great clubs in America, at 25, you become the head pro, which started only a 37-year run all the way through DJ's win in 2016. And let's talk a little bit about your time at Oakmont. Obviously, tremendous success. You're not in a place for 37 years unless you're doing a great job, and are just universally beloved, which you surely were. As you look back on it, Bob, what do you think were the reasons for your tremendous success, and being so beloved in that role for so long?
Well, thanks, Larry. I get back to Lou for a second.
Yeah,
He got the job at Oakmont in '47, the spring of '47,
yeah,
and said to the club, can I go play in the U.S. Open? I said, yeah,
yeah,
sure. And won the U.S. Open, as you've
yeah,
said,
yeah.
at St. Louis, which I'm impressed, Larry. You got
Well,
luck all
poor
wrong.
Sam. I've seen the pictures of those. I think they measured the two putts, if I'm remembering, like who was away, and I think that unnerved him a little bit. But anyways, it's part of golf lore.
So I got to give you the 2 cent tour with Lou. So
Yeah,
because he
please.
never he never talked about himself. He never talked about playing. Never talked about what he did. And I really, until he left, and probably after he died, did I start, finding out. Well, we didn't have AI like you have now, but um, he I said, tell me about the play, the St. Louis Country Club, the deal with
Yeah,
the Oak.
yeah.
And he said, we played together the last two rounds and we tied. So we go on a playoff the next day, and we're tied going to 18. I'm like, Jesus, I mean, what unbelievable. And I said, well, tell me about, the last hole. And he said, the second shot there is a little bit blind. I hit a 7-iron. I thought I flagged it, but there wasn't any applause or anything. So I figured I was either long or short. He said, I get up there and I'm just over the back of the green. I said, what about Sam? Well, Sam hit his about 15 feet left of the hole. I'm like, uh-oh, I'm gasping, because I know the outcome. Tell me about your chip. He said, I had a great chip, went down and actually lipped out and, rolled about 3 feet by. What about Sam? Now I want to hurry. Now I want to get to the end, He said, well, he had a 15-foot left to right downhill. He left it kind of a little short and had a, 3 foot left to righter, which, he got up over his putt quick. And I said, Sam, I think maybe I'm away, which back then, you had the right to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of people accused him of sportsmanship and they were bigger Sam Snead fans than they were Lew Worsham fans. I don't think
Yeah.
Lew had won
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
And Lew took a lot of criticism for it, but Ike Granger came out of the gallery. He was president of the USGA and measured, and uh, Sam was away by a quarter of an inch.
Right.
So he said, he did have the right to keep putting. So anyhow, I said, well, then what happened? He said, kind of hit it weak, missed it right, like all of us do on little left to
On
right.
left to right putts, right? Yeah.
Brutal. And I said, what about yours? I didn't have any trouble with mine. I didn't have any trouble with mine.
I love it. That's great.
So that was pretty cool. All right, hit me again. Where were we?
Yeah, just talking about your success there, kind of,
Oh yeah.
what the just tremendous run, kind of as you think back, kind of what do you think were in retrospect, kind of maybe the reasons for why you know hit it off so fantastically as a club pro at Oakmont?
Well, Larry, I would say that this isn't right, but I qualified my first, like Lew went and played in the Open. Well, I qualified for the U.S. Open that year, my first year, that spring. And at Baltusrol, that Jack won, beat
Yeah,
Aoki,
right, with his
1780.
63. Right, that's right.
So, everybody likes a good player. And, I was never a braggy kind of a guy. I just kind of let my clubs do my talking. And next year I played in the PGA. And then in '83, I qualified for the Open at Oakmont.
That's the host pro, right, right. It's the host pro,
And,
right.
I kind of sat down on the edge of the bed a couple of weeks after that Open and said, you'll probably never do anything like that. That'll be the biggest thing you ever do, which for a club pro was a big deal. And I think, him winning the Open in 47 carried him for 32 years. And I think that carried me for 37 years. So,
let's talk about that. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. And and again for our listeners, I've been talking about what a stellar, club pro Bob was at two of the finest clubs in the country. Your playing career, notwithstanding, you didn't make it on the Q school, but tremendous playing career. Multiple Pennsylvania Open wins, Pennsylvania PGAs, and the U.S. Opens, making the cut in a couple. And let's talk about the '83 one. You just mentioned it, so let's talk about it. So that's the, Larry Nelson 62-footer putt U.S. Open when they finished the next day after the thunderstorms. But you, as the host pro, make not only play in it, you make the cut, you finish tie for 26th. Along with all the other things you're doing, as being the host pro, you're running the merchandise tent. I mean, so you're out there playing on the weekend, playing tie for 26, just incredible how you were able to sort of do all that. I mean, there was a lot of balls in the air that weekend for you.
it is pretty crazy, to look back on it. It didn't look, just kind of came natural for me. Whatever. But I had a lot of help. My family and my staff really ran the U.S. Open merchandise. It was my concession. The club fought really hard against the USGA. It was pretty contentious, but they were, this is what's in the contract and it's his, and you're not going to take it away, and we're not taking it away. And so, I mean, it was a big deal for me. It really got me healthy financially to be able to do what I did, merchandise wise going forward. But yeah, my brother and Jack Druga and my sisters and my mom, they all were, it was a mom and pop operation back then too. It wasn't like it is today.
Right. No, it's
Because I also ran the one in '94 for the club,
wow.
For the
Okay.
club's benefit. But that was a much bigger deal. But anyhow, I had gotten hypnotized that spring because I knew that I needed to compartmentalize what was going on for me. So when I got to the first tee playing, I was getting out of an elevator and walking on the first tee. And when I got out of that elevator, I was a golfer.
Yeah.
And when I signed my card at 18, I owned the merchandise rights, and I better get in the shop and, take the cash bags down to the house. So, I got to play practice rounds with Jack Weiskopf and Ed Snead Tuesday.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Wednesday, I played with Arnold. Ben Crenshaw, Miller Barber, and Jay Siegel. We actually played five.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was a little odd, and it happened. I won't bore you with the story about how that happened, but Ben said, "Oh, Miller and I will get another game." I said, "No, because I caddied for him in Japan in '82, and said
Wow.
if I make the U.S. Open, will you play a practice round with me?" He was one of my idols,
Sure.
like Gary was.
Yeah.
I really looked up to those guys, and he said, "Okay, why don't you ask PJ if we can do it?" So I asked PJ, and he was rough. He was tough. He was a tough guy. He
Yeah.
already didn't
Yeah.
like me because of the merchandise. So uh, I said, PJ, Mr. Palmer's going to play with us. He said, go ahead and play. Go ahead. Just don't hold anybody up. So, I bring that up only because by the time Thursday came around, I wasn't so nervous. I was
Yeah.
really nervous playing with those guys.
Sure.
And I was paired with Jim Albus.
Okay. Yeah. He's a club pro, right? Was it Piping Right? Somewhere on Long Island, right?
You're killing me. I can't believe how knowledgeable you are. I'm
I
so
just
impressed.
remembered him. He was a notable club pro. Yeah.
Yeah, won a bunch on the senior tour,
Yeah, he
and
did.
then
Right.
and a guy named Steve Benson, who also was a club pro. The three of us happened to play in '81 on the PGA Cup team against Great Britain and Ireland, so they were my pals, and so I wasn't nervous playing with them either. So I played, enough to make the cut on Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday was just kind of gravy for me. Saturday, we played in threesomes because of the rain delay Friday night. And I
Yeah.
played with Lou Graham and Hubert Green, which was really a treat.
That's
A couple
cool. Yeah.
of U.S. Open champions.
Yeah, exactly.
And Sunday I played with Bob Gilder, just a
Okay.
two ball, just a twosome. And I was shot 72 on Sunday. It was like out of body experience. I was number one in putting that week. If you can
Really?
believe that.
Wow.
I found that out this year's U.S. Open. The stat guys. I mean, we didn't have stats in
Sure,
'83.
sure.
Somebody said, yeah, Bob was, he tied. I can't remember who I tied with, but I tied with somebody for low putting that week.
Wow.
So it was, it was an incredible week. And so getting back to your question about, the things we did, I think that, one thing, because I played a lot and I was gone a lot, it really empowered my staff.
Yeah.
And when you're 22, 23, 24, like I was working for Lew, I ended up running Lew's books and kind of running his business his last year. You want the ball,
Right.
and
Right.
the ball was there to be had. I threw the ball up, and who's going to get it? But those young men and women that worked for me just knocked it out of the park. And when you're at Oakmont or Wingfoot or Baltusrol, you can be replaced really quick, and I knew that too. And they really they stepped it up. We ran great tournaments. Our merchandise program was fabulous, and we were nice to people. I mean, it's not that hard, right? We knew why we were there, and we were humble and accommodating, and made people feel at home. And I stressed, people walk in that door, that pro shop door, they're walking in your house.
Right.
And you better greet them and say, geez, nice to have you. What can we do for you today? And I got one really cute story though.
Yeah,
You'll
please.
get a kick out
Absolutely.
of.
Please.
Steve Archer, one of my assistants. He's now at Kinsale down in Naples, but he's an assistant in the shop. And Mike Ruzioni walks in the shop,
Ah.
and Mike is ADD times 10, and he's bouncing off the walls. And Steve catches him off one of the walls and says, good afternoon. Who are you playing with today? And he said, I'm playing with Mario Lemieux. First time I've ever played Oakmont. First time I've ever played with Mario Lemieux. I'm out of my mind. So he goes around and finally comes back, and Steve, has another question for him. We try to ask everybody 3 questions. And Steve says, so what's your handicap? Mike says, I'm a 5. A couple of minutes go by, and he comes back to Steve and says, what do you think my chances of breaking 80 are here at Oakmont? Steve said, you believe in miracles?
Gives him the Al Michaels line right back to him. That's great
You
from the
believe
80
in
use
miracles.
Olympic US for the 80 Olympic team. That's awesome. I love it.
He,
That's
he shot
great.
89, by the way.
Yeah, no, I would have said, yeah, right. Slim and none probably were his chances.
Oof.
That's great. I love it. That's a cute story. And I should say, you're talking about your assistants. I mean, one of the many things, you've had so many assistants go on to so many, great positions. I mean, through your mentorship. I mean, you mentioned Jack. I think he's at Shinnecock, if I'm remembering right. And, there's a bunch of others who have gone on to great clubs. I mean, and I guess you kind of maybe touched on. I was going to ask you why you were so successful as a mentor, but you sort of gave them the ball, it sounds like, and you think that was sounds like a key to how so many of these young folks grew up to be notable head pros in their own right.
They grew up fast, because they had responsibility, and everybody wants responsibility. And they grew up fast, and took young, really nice kids that wanted to be on my side of the counter, and just gave them confidence. Really, I mean, it's the guys on tour. I mean, Tommy Fleetwood had confidence yesterday. That's
Yep.
what's been holding him back. And
Yep.
what's the difference? You watch guys hit golf balls, and it's like the difference between Scotty Scheffler and the rest of the world is he has more confidence than everybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
And so you got to, they were, very confident when they got to the interview process, and they've got a leg up already, being from Oakmont or Seminole or again Marion or any of our great clubs. I mean, your resume goes to the top of the pile, and then if you don't flunk out of the interview, you probably get the job.
Yeah,
So
no, that's well said. One of the things I did want to ask you about that happened during your time at Oakmont, you mentioned the '94 US Open, and of course, Oakmont's had, I think, what, 10 US Opens now, so many USGA championships, but just looking at the pictures between the '94 US Open, which of course was, I mean, that was Arnold's last U.S. Open. A lot of notable things for that one, and Ernie Els and everything. And then the 2007 U.S. Open, the difference of the trees being gone. And I have to ask you about the whole tree removal project at Oakmont because you guys, I think, looking back, were kind of one of the forerunners of that movement that's sort of been so prevalent over the last several decades with so many clubs, particularly classic clubs where there have been so many trees planted and they, does that creates havoc with the turf, does a lot of things. And so talk to me kind of how that tree removal project came about at Oakmont and kind of how you guys executed it. I'm sure there's, must have been some tricky moments with membership saying, well, what happened to those trees on X hole or whatever? And so how did that come about and how did you able to accomplish it?
well, it is an extraordinary story, and it did really start a wave across our nation. To people, look, they did it there, we can do it here, kind
Right.
of an attitude. But quickly, like in '83, the fall of '83, I took the grounds committee down the first hole and put my ball in a bunker and had them, look from behind to see what was in front of me. And in front of the bunker was a big tree. And I said, I just think something's, not right here. And the chairman of the committee, we were still putting trees in at that time. So the chairman of the committee said, Bob's right. We got to take that bunker out. And I about cried. I mean, I'm like, oh, God. So I don't say another word for
Yeah.
10 more years. And, the early 90s. So here we are, 8, 9, 10 years later, after we planted more trees. We had a couple guys get in power, Bank Smith and Jim Malone, who are both deceased now. And they we actually played one day with Jim Simons and Steve Leone, who was his
Wow.
Jim, grew up with Jim in Butler. So Jimmy was a great player.
Yeah.
We got on the 14th hole that was surrounded beautifully with trees. I mean, it was gorgeous, and told him what we were thinking of doing. And he said, you can't do that. He said, that's how we shape our shots, off those trees and the trees behind to give us great depth perception. It's like a backboard in a hoop.
Yeah.
if you ever shot hoops without a backboard, you know what it feels
Yeah.
like.
Oh,
And
totally. Exactly. It's a great analogy.
it was very warm and comforting to have those trees behind, as a backstop. And they were big trees behind a lot of greens and couldn't grow grass on the back of the greens either. So, when Jim said that, I was like, yes, this is exactly what we have to do. And those two guys were all for it. And we started taking them out at night, in the middle of the night. And I lived on the 18th green.
Right. You
And
had your house was there. Right. That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And about 4:30 in the morning, we'd hear the saws, zzz. My wife would kick me in and say, damn Banks is at it again, and and I'm like going, yes, yes, keep going. So the tree got down, it got taken away. The sod, they picked up all the leaves. They put this big bag on the ground, and the tree fell on the bag, and they wrapped it up so they get all the leaves and put sod down. And one of our darn caddies had a favorite spot to go potty, and he went over there and he saw the sod. And he said, "Man, they're taking trees down. I've seen this. I've seen the sod in other places." And word got to the members, and the members threw a fit, and
Yeah.
it got very contentious
Yeah.
because they were the ones that put it in. I mean, we had
Right.
fundraising deals in the '80s to raise money to put trees in,
Wow.
like most clubs did. But it was all clubs do everything together.
Right. Of course.
And the kitchen, everybody gets a new kitchen. They need this, they need a new roof.
Right.
It's hilarious, actually. The
Yeah, it is.
peer pressure. But now everybody's redoing their golf courses, like we did. We did it, and a bunch of courses in Pittsburgh now are redoing their golf courses and across the country. So, and actually Seminole just did it too this past summer. But at any rate, so we powered through it. I mean, we had probably, I'm going to say 6 to 8 grounds chairmen all get thrown off the board when their name came up to get voted back on for their next term.
Wow.
They kept getting whacked. So at
Wow.
the end of it, I bought these shirts with a chainsaw on the sleeve, and I gave it to all those guys that had a hand in it. But it's fun to look back now. It wasn't so fun, as my role. I had to kind of play both sides of the
Right.
coin,
I'm sure that must have been tricky. Yeah.
and but people were not. They were, they weren't blaming me, and they took it out on the chairman. So the grounds that kept picking on the trees, and believe me, Larry, when I tell you, we never had the intent to do what happened now. There's one tree on the whole golf course. That was nobody's original intent. But as the years went by and trees came down and vistas were open up, the members there was a snowball effect. Even the guys that were against it said, what if we took those trees out? I think it would
Interesting.
look better.
Yeah.
And, now there's 6 trees left around the clubhouse. In the 62 open, there's a picture in the clubhouse. You couldn't, from 18 green, you couldn't see any building behind you, none. So even the Phones family who put those trees in didn't know what they were doing with trees, because now that they're gone, it's the most spectacular looking building, one of the great clubhouses in the world that was hidden. So where there's 6 trees left, they're really nervous, and I don't have any say in the matter. But if I did, they'd be gone.
Yeah. Well, the vistas are just tremendous now. And, of course, the club, showed off so beautifully, at the US Open this year. And it's been, and as you said, I mean, it really has been a forerunner. And you're totally right. If they could do it at Oakmont, we can do it here, kind of thing. And which has been great. I want to sort of turn to Seminole. So, as if it wasn't great enough that you're having this tremendously long, successful career at Oakmont, I guess Seminole, Jerry Pittman, talk about another good player, was the pro down there for a long time, and he retires in '99, and you end up doing that job for the winter. How did that come about, and what was that like, sort of doing the 6 months and 6 months for I guess for a while because, what you retired from Oakmont in 2016. So it was probably what, 16, 17 years where you were doing both.
Yeah, yeah. Again, looking back on it, it's pretty neat. But Jerry Pittman is a legend to me, and in our world, I mean, he had two top tens in the U.S. Open and the Masters.
Right, right.
Played with Jack in '66 on Sunday. I mean, he was amazing, amazing guy. And I'd go to him for golf lessons, and
Oh, okay.
in the winter time, because I wintered down there.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah, Jim Simons had a great friend who was a member there named Dr. Richard Hoover. And Jim lived in Admiral's Cove. I lived in Jonathan's Landing, kind of a neighboring community. And he said, call Doc Hoover and we'll go play. I'm like, wow, that'd be awesome. Seminole to me was like
Right.
1978.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So played with Dr. Hoover, and that was pretty neat. And so anyhow, in the late 90s, today we probably have 8 to 10 members that are dual members at both clubs.
Mm.
But back then, John Birmingham, who played in 14 amateurs, and Stan Druckenmiller were members there, and they invited me to play a good bit in the winter. I was down there January and February. So in 98, 99, it became more frequent. And I really had no idea. I thought they just liked me, and, still played okay back then. And lo and behold, I was being interviewed, and by Tim Neer, who became the
Oh,
president
interesting.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an assistant there named Andrew Shuck, who was at Charlotte Country Club and then Cherry Hills, and now he's at a place called Fall Line that you're going to start to hear a lot about in Georgia. But he said, I hear your name being bannered around about the
Mm.
job. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. It's like getting in a club, you don't want to talk about it till you're in. And lo and behold, Tim called me April of '99 and said, Jerry Pittman's going to retire, this fall. And we want to know if you think Oakmont would allow you to do two jobs. He said, what do you think? And I said, I don't know, but I'd sure like to ask. And so I got the Oakmont hierarchy at that time, and they were very generous and said, yeah, we think that'd be great. In fairness to today's world, back then, I knew what happened from November to April in Pittsburgh, and there wasn't a lot of golf.
Right,
And
sure.
I really wasn't missing anything.
Right.
It also allowed my next assistant to really grow and be the guy for six
Yeah, that's a
months.
great point. Yeah.
So that was a great benefit for them. For me, it was like black and white. One was black, one was white. I mean,
There's such
so
different clubs, right? I don't know if people, I
it
mean,
was.
Oakmont's country club. It's got a pool, it's got food, it's got tennis, it has some national members, but most of the club is, Pittsburgh families. I mean, Seminole is a golf club, right? I mean, they're very different places, right?
Night and day. And, Seminole, as you mentioned, was, lunch only, no breakfast, no dinner,
Right,
just
right.
golf. They really want you to come and play golf and have a bite and have a drink when you're done and get out. It's not a place to hang around. And so really neat though. Golf centric, huge, golf IQ for all those people. Not that we don't have a lot of that at Oakmont, but for a country club, we have a lot of that. But down there, it's like everybody. And the respect that they have for the game and for each other and for the staff is unparalleled. It's incredible. So I had the best of both worlds, and I have to say that my wife Nancy, when she would, I said I'd sure like to ask my boss first, and that was Nancy, and she said, yeah, come on, let's do it, because she was used to going down to Florida and she liked it.
Yeah.
So she was in, the club was in, so we made a deal, and as we started, my kids were 8, 6, and 4, something like that.
Wow.
Something like
Okay.
that. And 8th grade, 6th grade, and 4th grade, excuse me. And so she homeschooled from January until April. And she stayed home with the kids till Christmas. I always
Wow.
came home for Christmas. That
Right.
was, like 6 weeks. And after a couple of years, I think 4 years, she cried uncle and said, "We need to put him in school down here."
Yeah.
And so they'd go to school down there from mid-August to early June. So I'd got, and I was like October 15 to April 15, right square on the 6 month line.
Yeah.
So I'd spent a little bit of time without him on each end, and she made it work. And
Wow.
she's an amazing mother and now grandmother,
Oh,
obviously.
wonderful.
Yeah, and so we're having a ball.
Well, that's great. And so I know you're retired now from both. I mean, as I mentioned, Oakmont after DJ's win, I think after the Walker Cup in 21 at Seminole. And I wanted to just sort of kind of just turn to a couple of general issues, if I could, and get your thoughts on them. I've asked this, as you know, I've had a lot of your peers on the program, whether it's Scott and I, Brendan Walsh, all people I know you know well, at other clubs. And I often, when I have those type of people on, ask the following. I want to ask you. I'm sure you saw this Golf Digest article. It's probably now 3 years ago now, which sort of painted kind of a dark picture, I think it's fair to say, of the life of the club pro, and a lot of the challenges, the hours, etc. And I'm just curious, kind of with that in the background, kind of if there's any reactions you have to that, or even more generally, kind of what advice, if you have a young person coming to you, that wants to potentially pursue the life as a club pro, kind of what's your advice to them and kind of how do you see the profession as it sits today? I know that's a big topic. You can take it any way you want, but get your thoughts on that.
Well, the Golf Digest article to me was a joke. It was not reality. It allowed some people to make it reality. It wouldn't have been in my world. And I would tell people, if you think being in the golf business is a 40-hour week, you're in the wrong business. Don't even get in. Don't even think about it. It's all day, every day. It's in season all day, every day. And you don't want to do that, then don't do it. But my advice to people getting into the business, Larry, is don't do it unless you're a golf degenerate like I was. You got to be hook, line, and you got to be goofy about golf. You got to love golf more than anything. And because there's challenges and sacrifices and whatnot. You've got to be humble. You got to be a listener, not a speaker. People want to talk to you and you're to listen. They're not real, it's not that they're not interested in you, but it's all about them, which I
Yeah.
totally get. And, they're coming to us for help, so, we need to help them, whether it's their golf swing, their golf bag, equipment, whatever. And again, if you don't eat, drink, and sleep golf, you're in the wrong business because I don't say it's tough. It was the greatest thing I ever did. I wanted to play the tour. No, I didn't. Now I got a lot of opportunities to play in the championships, as you know, and
Oh yeah, for sure.
you know me better than I know me, but um, it obviously to be at the great clubs of the world is just a stroke of luck for me. I was just in the right place at the right time 2 times, and but I mean that's everybody's goal to get to the top of the mountain, and and the journey's worth it's worth it. It's a neat profession, and if you like helping people and you want to make other people's day a happy day.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Let me sort of kind of, as we sort of get towards the end here, run a couple of things by you. I just love to get your thoughts on this. One of the things, we're not too far apart in age. And I remember, as I know you certainly do, what it was like to play golf when I was young with, persimmon woods and balata balls. Um, and you could really, those guys would spin. You could snap hook a driver. At least I could. I didn't have your skill, of course, like nobody's business. And um, equipment is so radically changed, and for sure, our elite golfers have gotten they're better athletes, and that's part of the equation. But the equipment has certainly changed, not just the ball, but the size of the driver with the 460cc heads, and you see the explosion in distance at the elite level, and all the issues that kind of raises, the having to keep building ever longer courses or classic courses, having to build tees all the far back. I sit here, I always think about this, Bob. I mean, Riviera, I'm in LA. Riviera's, probably two par fives away from my house. It's pretty close. And, I mean, that 12th hole, I mean, it's got to be a full wedge from the regular tees back to where they've stuck the back tee now. And it's, it slows things down. Everyone has to walk back there, the sustainability issues. And, what's that phrase, building the church for Easter Sunday? I mean, you're building these courses for this one day a year, where they have, in Riviera's case, the LA Open, US Open coming in a few years. Anyways, just kind of curious, you're such a keen observer about kind of your reaction to this. I mean, should we sort of, I mean, the USGA has proposed rolling back the ball, but I mean, kind of your thoughts, and I'm sorry, I'm going to throw out one more thing too, as I haven't thrown enough on the table here, is just sort of, to me, it kind of has flattened the skill level a little bit. I mean, at the elite level, I mean, these guys are all great, but it's like, I kind of personally think that if we were playing Persimmon Woods, Rory, who's such a generational driver, the delta would be even more sharp. Anyway, so whether it's skill level, sustainability, obsoleting some of our beautiful cathedrals of the game, having to build ever longer courts. What's your take on all this, and what do you think we should be doing?
Well, yeah, you've asked me a lot. I'll try to shotgun it here, but there are, since you and I started, maybe in the 70s or 80s, there's double the amount of people in our country now. It's like
Yeah,
150 million. Now we got 300.
right,
So
right.
we're double the opportunities we have to create great players. I do not buy for 1 second that the athletes are better, that they're stronger. Nobody was more fit than Arnold and Gary Player, and Jack never lifted a weight in his life, I don't think, and it was a monster. Jack Nicklaus today would hit at 350.
Yeah,
He
and
would,
Trevino always talks about if Nicholas had today's equipment in his prime, how far he would hit it.
no question. Yeah, and so I think the game's a lot easier today
Yeah, I
because of the
agree.
ball and the equipment. So it's easier to be a very good player. And there are a lot of really good players. Again, what separates everybody from Scotty Scheffler is confidence. And, when you make a lot of 30 footers, you get a lot of confidence going,
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, but I think that I'm a big fan of the USGA and rolling the ball back. I know a lot of my PGA members don't feel that way, but
Yeah,
everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I'm
sure.
happy to discuss it. But I said to Mike Wan, he said, "What do you think about the rollback?" I said, "Mike, it's just not enough." And the golf clubs, it's too long, 46s, which creates a lot more power. So I think it should be shorter. I think the head should be smaller. The irons, these guys are hitting the irons, 7 irons, 200 yards. I mean, we all hit at 150, back in the day for decades. And it's the golf ball, because the clubs aren't jacked up that as much as people think it's all the golf club. The irons, they really aren't. So I hope that this is a beginning, and that after the ball, everybody accepts the ball. Which here's my ball's not going to go too much shorter than it already
Right, right,
goes, right?
right, right.
But 15, 20 yards to a Rory or a Scotty Scheffler is, it's not incredibly significant. So I hope that they go to the driver next and
Yeah, I
gets a
do
little
too.
shorter. And I was out walking Oakmont this morning, which I rarely do by myself, not playing, just walking, because I found myself this summer, playing the golf course and seeing little things that I wanted to remember when I finished so that I could mention to them. And by the time I got done, and you have a Coke or that, which is what I have, or Diet Coke, and I forget, as you know that deal.
I
So
do all too well.
yeah, so I decided to walk the golf course with a notebook and make my notes. And I saw him a little bit during it, and he said, "That's great. We need as many eyes on it as we can get." And Oakmont, I said in my note to him that I've never seen it better. Oakmont has always been the best conditioned golf course to me in the country. Take Augusta. That's fake, right? But Oakmont, I said, but it's never been this good. And this guy is just a magician. I mean, we've had some great superintendents. He is really good, this guy. And he said, what do you think about number 4, the par 5? He said, Pat Reed knocked it on an eagle did. It's getting too easy. You think we should move the tee back some more? I said, Mike, one guy shot 1 under par. And we're not worried about score anymore.
Right,
this place is hard enough, and it was wet and soft.
Right, and it was wet and soft. Absolutely right.
I said, can you imagine if it was firm and fast?
I know.
These guys wouldn't finish. They'd hate Oakmont. I think now they liked it. I think one guy 1 under is pretty good. So I don't think we need more length. Certainly not at Oakmont. And Oakmont's only 73.50. This course that Tommy just won on, I mean, first hole is 530 and the third.
I know.
Oh my God. I mean, they're hitting woods. I mean, I love watching them hit woods in the par 4s, but we need a rollback, and I think elongating our golf courses is going to start to subside.
Yeah, I hope so. And I do hope. I know I've heard Juan talk about this, and I know they put a footnote in one of the things about the ball that they haven't given up on thinking about the club, and I hope that he means that because I couldn't agree with you more. Bob, I'll get you out here on this one final question for you, and this has just been wonderful talking with you. Just the state of the game generally. We had the pandemic, and one of the side effects of the pandemic was, golf being kind of the, I suppose, quintessentially socially distanced sport. We had a lot of people, come in and start playing during the pandemic, and that's obviously subsided. We're past the pandemic, but kind of how do you see the state of the game generally in terms of the public and where you sort of see it going forward from here?
Well, I think it's booming. I think the Gen Pop is the golf is booming, and it's fabulous. I'm not incredibly happy with the direction of, it's just personal style thing, I think. But I mean, golf carts, booze, music,
Yeah, the music,
shirts
yeah.
out, hats
Yeah.
on backwards. There's a lot of that growing, sadly, to me, sadly. But I know that when I was growing up in the game, the old guys were not happy with us, and so I think it's an old guy thing. And I don't drink, so the booze thing bothers me. And but and also the tour. I think that the tour overreacted to Live, because I think Live is like I don't even it's not in my world.
Right,
Playing in t-shirts and shorts and in carts
right,
and music.
right,
They're driving the Gen Pop in that direction, and thank God there's not very many of them. But
right.
so I'm not concerned at all with Live, and I don't blame the guys for going either. They're making gazillion dollars. It's fine.
Yeah,
You sold your company and made a fortune. I'm happy for you.
sure.
But you're not coming back to the PGA Tour.
Right,
You're
right,
done.
right.
But I can't say the fellow's name who took over for Jay Monahan.
I don't know that I can either. Brian something. I know he's from the NFL. I'm forgetting his last name
Rolak?
now. Something like
Rolak?
that. That's close.
So, he's, God bless him and good luck to him. But I mean, all of a sudden, he's Tiger's on this new committee,
Yes.
and nothing we're going to change the way we run golf tournaments. We're going to change the way we run the PGA Tour. Are you kidding me? Well, the stats that we're getting now for the year that we just had are like triple from
Yeah.
any year in the past
Yeah.
8 years. Don't don't mess with it.
Yeah. The ratings are way
It's
up here. Right. That's true.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you doing? Geez. And I'm not a fan of smaller fields and no cuts. I mean, that's going in the direction of live.
It
I
is.
mean, it's not the way, it's not how we grew up. It's not how the foundation was formed. So, and I think that in the FedEx deal, when you get to 70, okay, the top 50 in that tournament get to go on, and then the top 30 get to go on. And if Rory and Scotty miss it, too bad. That's the way
Right.
golf. That's the way life is,
Right.
and we shouldn't make life too easy for them, right?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's easy enough. You keep earning your way, pal. You know.
For sure. For sure. I'm just curious, just when you say that, if you're talking about the tour, I mean, did you kind of think the all exempt tour, when they went to that, was going in the right direction or the wrong direction? When our friend Gary McCord, I think, pushed Beeman back in what, 83-ish or something like that to go to the all exempt tour. I mean, I always remember, Bob, one of the golf books, and I've got a million of them here, as you might imagine, but one of the ones I always loved was Frank Beard's biography of his year on tour in 69, and which ended up being a great his career year. And he would, and this was part of Frank's personality, but he'd always talk about, got to get in the top 60, got to get in the top 60. And, that was the mantra, right? So you didn't have to do the Monday qualifying. Do you think sort of going in the all exempt tour? I'm curious, and now it's funny, right? Because the signature events are almost somewhat going the other direction because you've got now at least a chunk of events where you have to be in qualify for those, and just being on the all exempt tour doesn't get you into those. I'm curious, did you have any reaction looking back on whether that was a good or bad thing?
Well, I think that we all judge things based on ourselves,
Sure.
and for me, it didn't work for me because as a club pro, if you finished in the top 25 of the National Club Pro, you got a PGA Tour card.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that. Okay.
And other than that, one time in your career, you could say, I'm going to use my one-time exemption. I'm going to play the PGA Tour as a club pro.
Wow, I didn't
So
realize that.
if you had a PGA of America card, so I qualified for in the top 25 and I got my tour card and played a couple winters poorly, thank goodness. I got made one cut at Bay Hill, but at any rate, because you had to get in on Monday. I only
Right.
got in a few, and then I only
Yeah,
made it.
those were so hard to get in. Yeah.
So, but it was an opportunity. So the opportunity's gone. So after '83, when they went all exempt, and when they started, I don't really know what came first, the Ben Hogan tour or the whatever Nike tour. I don't know what came first, but anyhow, that they opened that up for us based on our finish in the National Club Pro. So I
Got
got
it.
to play. I had January and February and mostly March off in my contract. So, I'd try to play because I wanted
Right.
to get better and keep going. And
Sure.
so I played, I don't know, probably 20 of those, Nike, whatever they were back then.
Right.
And we had one here in Pittsburgh also, which was great. Finally, because we never had a tour event in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Well,
My
that's
buddies
actually
are,
kind of amazing to think about. You're right.
yeah, all my buddies around the country are, getting exemptions into the tournaments in their cities, and
Yeah.
I never could. So
Yeah.
I'm not crying over anything.
No, you're
I'm
not. You've had,
pretty
and
good.
Bob, you've had just an incredible career. I mean, we could have spent an hour just listing all of your awards and Hall of Fames you're in, and and I do want to just, I know I mentioned at the outset, but the Bob Jones Award is the highest award there is, and I know at the time, I think this is still the case. I mean, you're the only club pro I think to have gotten that award, which is really, really cool. I'm sure that must have been a special thing getting that. Obviously a lot of other things. You've been, PJ of America Club Pro of the Year, lots of other honors, but that one really caught my eye. That's a pretty cool thing to be the only club pro to have gotten that.
Yeah, I sat down after the phone call and I was in Florida at the time, and it's just like I don't know that I just heard what I think I heard. I mean, it's just unbelievable, and just incredibly blessed and honored, uh, and I did poorly in my presentation of once I got the award, but no regrets. It was
No,
awesome.
I'm sure it was great. Bob, thank you so much for making the time. This has been, I knew this would be great, and it was. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I can't wait to shake your hand. I can't believe how much you know about me, and I'm really
Well,
impressed.
you're a legend of the game, and I hope to get that chance. And certainly, if you're ever out in LA, you have my contact information. It would be the great honor at Brentwood Country Club to have Bob Ford host Bob Ford, so which is where I am. So thank you so much, sir. Best to you.
Thanks, Larry. You too, pal. Take care.
Thanks.